So the world is full of diamonds and gems, and we are having some of them here today to build this event. With this note, I would like to give my heartiest welcome to our guest, Dr. NVR Jyoti Kumar, Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor KRS Sambasivarao, respected Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Vinaya Saruja, all to you, my Professor Saxena, and it is this on pathway to Viksit Bharat 2047 Indian economy. Thrilled to witness enthusiastic participants are all gathered to understand of this significant topic. Today's webinar on Pathway to Viksit Bharat 2047 Challenges and Opportunities for Indian Economy aims to bring a light on various aspects associated with this topic, thereby sparking thoughtful discussions and stimulating new ideas. We are fortunate to have with us a very distinguished speaker, Dr. NVR Jyoti Kumar. Sir has started the academic and professional career at VRS and YRN PG College, affiliated to Andhra University at Chirala, Andhra Pradesh, for 19 years in the Department of Commerce and Management Studies. Later, Sir has joined and have been with Mizoram Central University since 2004 as Associate Professor and Senior Professor. Sir is having nearly 40 years of teaching and research experience. It's a vast experience, sir. We definitely, get our knowledge and experience from your session. And served as Head, Department of Commerce and Management, Mizoram University for 3 tenure. Also served as Dean in School of Economics, Management and Information Science in Mizoram University. He has approximately 15 PhDs, 80 research papers, 3 reference books, lesson writers for distant education program of various universities, including IGNOU. Sir is also a regular contributor of articles in the editorial page in Anadu, the largest Telugu newspaper, contributed 100 articles. Presently serving as a senior professor at Mizoram Central University. So we are blessed to have this webinar, and our students definitely get vast knowledge from your session. Welcome you, sir, and I request you to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Swati Saxena, for your introduction, and maybe it seems you have very high expectation of me. Only after 1.5 hours, I would know whether I could reach up to your expectation or I disappointed you. And I'm very much thankful to Mangalayatan University, Jabalpur, for giving me this opportunity to interact with my fellow academicians and research scholars of different universities in the country. And I am personally thankful to Professor KSR Sambasivarao Garu for giving me this opportunity. Some 20 days back, when he had sent me a message that is it possible for me to speak on some relevant topic for the benefit of the scholars and students, then I wanted to speak on some relevant topic, some current topic of general interest, instead of speaking on some topic relating to some subject of management and commerce, right? Then I thought this topic would be more relevant because these days, I mean, many people, ma'am, just go to the next slide here. Yeah, so
Sir, sorry to
these days,
interrupt.
many people,
Sir, sorry to interrupt. There
yeah,
is a slight echo in the mic.
I can operate
There is a slight echo in the mic. Can you please check?
my
Yeah.
yeah, okay, okay, sir, okay. So, so thank you, Mangalayatan University, Vice Chancellor K.R. Samsivara Garu and faculty for giving me this opportunity to interact with you. And I think this first slide, it speaks about India's growth story. And nowadays, if you see the newspapers or any media, and we come across some good content, some very positive content about India's development story or saga of development. And our leaders, especially from the government, and they are very much hopeful for making India a developed nation. And we call it Viksit Bharat by 2047. So India was the 10th largest economy in 2014, some 10 years back. By 2022, India emerged as the 5th largest economy in the world. And economists forecast that we are in the process of becoming the 3rd largest economy in next 3 years, that is by 2027. And we all know that our strength, India's strength as a nation, lies with its demographic dividend. And over 65% of our population, they are of below 35 years of age. That is the strength of India. And we all know that the so-called advanced countries, whether it is America or many America or European nations, I think they are already reached the stage of aged nations. Their status is just aged nations, and we all know that they are very much dependent on manpower, technically proficient and English spoken manpower from India. And we all know that Indians are playing an important role in different parts of the country, whether it is a developed world or a developing world, right? So this is our strength, and now we are going to utilize this particular strength. Ma'am, I have not completed. Next, last slide. So this is one important area, demographic dividend. We are going to have it. At present, we have it as a strength, but please remember, like any other nation, this strength we are not going to have after 20 or 25 years. By 2050, India is going to be an aged nation like many other nations. So this is that is why our Prime Minister is always focusing one particular point, that this is Amrit Kal. This is Amrit Kal means this is a golden opportunity for us as a country. This is a golden opportunity for our country to harness this particular strength into a reality. So, and we all know the Prime Minister's goal or maybe vision for India by 2047, that is Viksit Bharat. So, from content point of view, India's growth story sounds very well. It sounds very well, and it is creating new hopes that very soon India would emerge as a developed nation. Yes, yes. Next slide. But these are some of the intriguing questions. These questions may be little inconvenient for the people in power, and these questions, but these are not my questions, my own personal questions, and based on the literature and based on the discussion that is happening among the economists and among the development thinkers. These are some of the intriguing questions, and as academicians and as teachers of social sciences especially, we have a responsibility to think about these questions, the answers for these questions. So these are some of the questions. Will India become a developed nation by 2047? Does the size of the economy truly reflect the living standards of the people? Yes, it is true. India is going to be 3rd largest economy in next 3 years, and now we are claiming that we are the 5th largest economy. That's fine, but that is only about the size of the economy. But the relevant question is, does the size of the economy truly reflect the living standards of the people. Why it will take 25 more years to make India a developed country, according to the government's own estimates? Is it not so long time? Because India attained its independence in 1947. So we are expecting that within 100 years of our independence, it would be possible for India to achieve the status of a Viksit Bharat, a developed nation. Is it not so long time? Then, despite ascending to the status of the fifth largest economy, how come India is still languishing at a lower 132nd rank out of 191 countries in HDI? And of course, especially students and teachers belonging to commerce and management and also economics, they are in touch with the business newspapers, right? And nowadays, even in vernacular press, many very frequently we are seeing certain words like GDP, size of the country in terms of GDP growth rate, inflation, unemployment, employment, right? And foreign direct investments. So these are some of the common words we are seeing, and our economists and the people in the government, they are trying to measure the performance of a country in terms of this technical jargon, right? But the issue is not only about GDP. The issue is also about HDI, Human Development Index. So when India is the fourth or fifth largest economy in the world, how come we are so low in terms of HDI? That is a question posed by many development economists and thinkers. So how come India is the home for the largest number of the people in the world? We all know out of 5 people in the world, 1 person is Indian, almost 20%. And ours is the largest populous country now. And China is next to us. So China and India, they are almost same in terms of the size of population. But as far as poverty is concerned, how come India is the home? Still, it is the home for the largest number of the people in the world. At the same time, the third ranking country in terms of number of billionaires. So in terms of billionaires, we are the third largest country next to America and China. So there is some irony. If you see the last 2 bullets, one side we are claiming that ours is the 5th largest economy. That's fine, positive thing. But on its flip side, we are very low in terms of Human Development Index. And the last bullet also, if you see, there is some paradoxical situation. On one side, we are claiming that, ours is a third ranking country in terms of number of billionaires, a positive thing maybe. But, on the other side, India is also the home for the largest number of poor people in the world. Yes, next one. So these are some of the ground realities. The present, scenario as far as Indian economy is concerned. So at present, India is only a lower middle income country. And if you see the last bullet, the World Bank classified the countries into 4 categories, and especially those who are the students of economics. They are aware that we classify the economies, the countries into 4 categories based on the income, based on the national income. They earn low, lower middle, upper middle, and high income. But the ground reality is, at present, India is only a lower middle income country. And India's gross national income per capita was only 1.79 lakhs, right? But if you want to emerge as a developed nation, I think we need to earn almost 11 lakh rupees. Our gross per capita income should reach 11 lakh rupees. That is, last but one bullet. So you understand, possible to understand the gap between what we are now and what we need to achieve. So India was in 94th position in HDI in 1950, right? That is about 75 years back. But now it is in 134th position, 94th position out of 143 countries. That is in 1950. But now our position is not so great, and still it is 134th position out of 193 countries. And India is in 108th position in gender inequality index. So we cannot ignore this particular index, because many development thinkers and sociologists, they are very much particular about gender equality. And that is also one of the 17 sustainable development goals as enunciated by UN, right? And this is one issue. And 57% of females in India and 25% of males, they suffer from anemia belonging to one particular age group, that is 15 to 49 age group alone if you take. And 25 crore Indians escaped from poverty in last 10 years. And that is the claim of Gopinath sir. Please mute yourself.
Okay, sir.
Please mute yourself. I'm happy to see you, Professor. Dr. Gopinath is senior scientist from ISRO. He joined from Hyderabad, right? And he's also visiting professor for some of the universities. And I'm happy to introduce him. And he's one of the scientists at ISRO who is fortunate to work with Abdul Kalam. Thank you, sir, for joining me. Please mute, sir, yourself. I'm not able to see this PPT.
So there is some technical issue. Again, we are sharing, sir.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we'll welcome you, Gopinath sir, for this webinar. It's our honor and privilege to have you. Thank you so much, sir, for joining.
So meanwhile, I also welcome, there are some of my colleagues on this platform, and our dean of the school, Professor Bhartendu Singh is there, and some of my colleagues and scholars from Mizoram University, it seems they also joined, and I welcome all of them on behalf of Mangalayatan University.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, I can speak. Without PPT also, but PPT contains some important statistical data.
So now it's PPT is showing,
It is
sir.
too, no, it is too small. You may close it and again you start sharing it.
Sir, in the meanwhile, can you speak something?
Yeah, I just want to compare, it's fine. I just want to compare India with other countries. I mean, in terms of saga of development, right? And if you compare India with China, because we cannot ignore China, not only being our neighbor, but also China and India, they are quite comparable. They are Asian nations. Not only that, in terms of size of population, they are quite comparable. And if you compare the economic development of China and India, in 1988, the GDP of both countries was almost the same. In 1988, but you know, by 2023, China's GDP was almost 5 times higher than India. That is the ground reality. See, we academicians and researchers, we cannot ignore the ground realities. And it is also the responsibility of the policymakers. Of course, policymakers, I'm not saying that they are not aware of these ground realities. They are also quite aware of these ground realities. And they have vision to make India a developing nation. But unless we address these ground realities, I think the vision would become a mere slogan. That is the apprehension of many development thinkers, right? Swati madam, thank you very much. And anyway, I will continue my discussion about comparing some of the nations with India in the due course. So these are some of the ground realities, and the government's claim is, it is not the government's claim. In fact, the Prime Minister also frequently is mentioning, the Finance Minister also, she is mentioning very frequently that last 10 years span of time, 25 crore Indians, they escaped from poverty. But again, the flip side of the story is, still 81 crore Indians will continue to get free ration of food for 5 more years. And we introduced this particular scheme in 2020 April, when the entire globe was suffering from pandemic. And at that time, it was considered as a short-term measure in order to help the deprived sections of the people. That's fine. But again, I mean, extending this scheme for next 5 more years, up to 2029, then, you know, would it imply that still poverty is there in the country? Is it because the recognition of the existence of utter poverty in the country? That is one question. Or is it a freebie? Or is it a development measure to tackle the poverty? So these are some of the questions development thinkers are posing, right? And India has to jump to thresholds to become, it has to jump to 2 thresholds to become a high income country, an income, I mean, equivalent to 11 lakh rupees, right? So that is a gap between the present situation and the vision we have by 2047. So next slide, ma'am, next one. So what the economists say? So these are the views of some of the economists. So if India's GNI per capita for the next 25 years grows at the same rate as that for the last 25 years, based on that assumption, still it will fall short of high income threshold next 25 years. So hence India's income needs to grow at 9 to 10% of GDP in the upcoming period to touch the mark. And Dr. Rangarajan, a noted economist and who served the government as the chief economic advisor to Prime Minister, he calculated that India would need to grow at real rate of 6.18 to 6.74 to become a higher income country by 2047. That is a modest estimate. Yes, ma'am. Next one. Then the question is GDP a perfect measure to assess the performance of any economy? And GDP is an old-fashioned method of analysis, according that many economists, many development thinkers, and they realized it, and many policymakers and also governments across the world, they also recognized that GDP has its own limitations. GDP is not a foolproof kind of statistical measure to assess the performance of any economy, because GDP only measures the value of all final goods and services, but not overall well-being of the people, right? So GDP doesn't measure quality of living standards of people. Quality of living standards, for example, it may be health of children, it may be quality of education, or it may be joy of their play, right? And incidentally, today is World's Happiness Day. Just I was seeing on the UN website on the occasion of World Happiness Day 2024. You know what is their goal? To achieve a more inclusive, equitable, and balanced approach to economic growth. They are not ignoring economic growth. To achieve a more inclusive, equitable, and balanced approach to economic growth that promotes the happiness and well-being of all peoples. So so here, you know, we understand economic GDP. We are not saying GDP is not an outdated method. GDP is still relevant, but GDP alone, if you want to achieve, if you want to measure the performance of any economy only in terms of GDP size or GDP growth rate, I think something we are missing out. So that is a concern of many development thinkers, because GDP doesn't measure quality of life, and it is ineffective measure because GDP includes whatever we are doing, whatever economic activities we are performing, thereby releasing a lot of air pollution. GDP includes liquor sales, cigarette advertising, expenditure on jails, nuclear warheads, and expenses on such wholesome products. I think one very simple examples we used to give in the class of in marketing class and in economic class. Say, for example, if a country is spending so much of money to combat with crime rate, if they spend, if they appoint more number of police people, if they establish more number of police stations, right, then it would positively impact the GDP, right? And if people are suffering from a lot of ill health during a particular period, if there is more demand for pharmacy products, if there is more demand for doctors and hospitals, then it would reflect on GDP in a positive way. But the reality is something different. And if a country has enhanced its defense budget for certain reasons, then GDP would grow up. But we all know that the real story is something different. So that is why GDP is always considered as an ineffective measure. And there is almost unanimity among the economists as far as this, this way of thinking is concerned. Yes, next one. Ma'am, next slide. So HDI, a shift to people-centered, HDI, a shift to people-centered policies. So Human Development Index, its focus is not on national income accounting, and it is a statistical measure developed in 1990s, early 1990s, as part of UNDP. And HDI summarizes 3 key dimensions: health, education, and living standards. And today in newspapers, if you see, there are certain editorials written in today's newspapers on the occasion of World Happiness Day 2024. What are the countries which are on the top of the list? which countries are happiest countries in the world, right? And the so-called the 5 nations or 10 nations which are very great in terms of GDP, you don't find those countries in top 10, in top 20. You find countries like Finland, Switzerland, Denmark, and some small countries, very unknown countries. But what is the problem? If they are very happy, if they are very happy about their progress, if they are very happy about their lives, and if they are very particular about sharing of happiness with others, if they are nature's lovers, what is the problem with others? Even if their GDP is so low, right? So that is the issue. So so that is why health, education, and living standards, they focus mostly on that. And there are other measures which would help us in understanding the human development that is happening in a particular country or society. That is life expectancy index, education index, and GNA index. These are more holistic measures to understand the human development aspect, perspective of a country, right? But unfortunately, I mean, in global summits, in national summits, and even in our parliament and assemblies, hardly we don't find much discussion about these aspects like health, education, and living standards, sustainable employment. These are somehow, I mean, much discussion on expected lines. It is not happening. Okay, ma'am. Next one. Then what is development? And everyone feels that it is a well-known term. And from layman to the policymaker, everyone speaks about development. But what is development? I want to just give a brief introduction about development. Initially, it is an economic concept involving the use of available resources. And initially, especially in 1950s and 60s, the kind of thinking that happened among the economists is like this, that development implies utilization of, if not exploitation of, utilization of or exploitation of available resources to instigate economic growth and improve people's quality of life. That was the kind of thinking. So the focus gradually, it was quantitative in nature, right? Rather than qualitative. And because of that kind of thinking, the focus shifted from the agriculture to industry, right? And the countries which were doing well industrially, they were considered as developed nations, rather than those nations which were focusing only on agriculture, right? Because of that kind of thinking. Then since 1970s, a new perspective emerged called sustainable development, right? And sustainable development that warned against the depletion of natural resources and called for such economic growth strategies without harming the welfare of future generations. And I think there is no second opinion about this. Now, whatever we want to do, whatever may be our policy, whatever may be our policy making, right? And you try to achieve economic growth without harming, without adversely affecting the mother nature, because this world belongs to our future generations also. And we should not be indulged in those activities as nations, as societies, as human beings. We should not indulge in such type of activities for which our future generations would not forgive us, right? Because you know, grandson is also important. Grandson's life is also important, not only my life. So that is a kind of thinking, and there is no second opinion about that. So that is why in 2015, and everyone knows that 17 Sustainable Development Goals were initiated by UN as part of its development strategy, and we all know about these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I suggest to the research scholars to go through, these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, because we started the journey of achieving these goals by 2030 in the span of 15 years. Now it is 2024, and we understand the progress report about every aspect of these 17 goals. No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. We all know about this. But if we go through these 17 SDGs, I think all are not related to only economic growth. All are not just related to only GDP. For example, peace, justice, and strong institutions, partnerships for the goals, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, right? Responsible consumption and production, that is very much important. Responsible consumption and production, right? So these are some of the issues. My simple advice to the research scholars who are pursuing their research and who are involved in research in social sciences, right? And somehow you try to connect your research work to some of these sustainable development goals. And sometimes in workshops, jokingly, I used to tell the scholars, if you are not able to connect your research to at least some of these sustainable development goals, there may be something wrong with your research proposal. Sometimes proposal may be good, but maybe there may be something wrong with the positioning, how we are going to position your research topic, how we are going to introduce your research to the audience. There is something wrong in terms of positioning of your research, right? So finally, our research should lead to understanding what is happening in the society in terms of achievement of these 17 sustainable development goals. I'm not asking the scholars to connect with each one of these 17 sustainable development goals, but at least 3 or 4 or 5 important goals it is possible for you to connect with these things. So what is that happened and what are the lapses and what is the future direction? So this is one of the important things we need to do as researchers in social sciences. Yes, ma'am, next. So I don't know your system, Swati ma'am, and I think is it a face-to-face interaction after my session is over, or they are expected to write their observations in the chat box?
So in the chat box only they will post the question if they have or the queries which they have. Then
Yes,
we'll
yes.
raise this question from you.
Yes, yes. So I request the honorable members, honorable participants to post your observations or questions, whatever it may be. Maybe 15 to 20 minutes time I want to spare for interaction once my session is over. And
If any of the participants want to ask something, they can. I mean, there is a open
Yeah.
forum, sir.
Okay. I think some people, they raised their hands, but after some time, maybe they want to interact with me. After some time, we will certainly allow. Okay, ma'am? Yeah. So this is going to be a two-way communication, not just one way. So now, how the nations fare in GDP versus HDI. Just about this I was speaking. So if you take top 5 economies like USA, China, Japan, Germany, and India, these are the top 5 economies, right? As far as GDP, and too much of newsprint, the newspapers are using just to highlight these are as if these are the winners of the world, right? But in terms of HDI, they are very low. Please remember. And rarely our policymakers focus on this in terms of discussion. For example, Germany, the US, and Japan, they enjoy relatively better HDI ranking. They enjoy relatively better HDI ranking. Germany 9th position, America 17th position, and Japan 19th position. Okay. But if you take these two countries, China and India, right? China's position is 79th and India's position is 132nd out of 191 countries in 2023 in terms of HDI. They are low. Their position is, low. But still, there is a lot of gap between China and India. And India's position is just 132nd. So India was even behind Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Bangladesh position was 129th and Sri Lanka position is 73. That is the ground reality. Yes, ma'am. Next. So these are the India's challenges. Just I want to focus something on India's challenges. Widening economic and social inequality. It has been increasing. That is a matter of concern, right? And India and China have almost the same size of population. Just about this I was speaking. I mean, if you compare China and India in 1988, the GDP of both countries was almost equal. The same line of same point of development at that point of time, right? But in 2023, last year, China's GDP was almost 5 times higher than India. What happened in between? The per capita rank of China was 75th, per capita income, 75th rank, whereas India's per capita income was, I mean, our rank was 143rd, right? And that is one thing. And if you compare India with Japan, right? And when we attained independence some 75 years back, in 1947, at that time, India and Japan both were destroyed very much. And India was devastated because of a long allied rule, and Japan was devastated because of World War II. But Japan just took not even 20 or 25 years of time to emerge herself as a developed nation, a superpower. In 1970s, the world recognized Japan as a superpower. See, and if you compare China and if you compare Japan and India in terms of in terms of natural resources, right? And there is no comparison at all. Even now, India is a rich country in terms of natural resources, in terms of kind of irrigated land, in terms of natural resources like rivers, forests, right, and manpower, and Japan has some inherent disadvantage. It is subject to so many types of natural calamities. It is entire country is prone for earthquakes, right? But what made the Japanese to achieve that miracle of economic power within 25 years? Why India is still languishing, still aiming to become a developed nation in next 25 years? That is one of the questions I want to raise. And here is one interesting statistics, right? And if you compare China and India, and students of economics, they are well aware of this structure of the economy, right? And still, as far as agriculture is concerned, if you take these 3 sectors, agriculture, industry, and services, agriculture sector in India, it accounts for 18 to 19% of GDP. Whereas services sector is, of course, ours is a services economy. Major contributor is services sector with more than 53% of GDP. Whereas industry, normally we consider it as manufacturing sector, right? Manufacturing sector's contribution is less than 29%. But if you see the employment scenario, right? And even today, roughly 45% of Indians, they depend on agriculture for their livelihood. Almost half of the people, half of our Indians, they depend on agriculture for their main prime livelihood. But agriculture's contribution to GDP is not even 20%. That means half of Indians, they depend on just 20% of GDP for their livelihood. There lies the crux of the problem. There lies the crux of the problem, and as a country, we need to address that problem. And but if you take China, and agriculture's contribution to Chinese GDP is just 8%. Of course, Chinese economy is also services sector, but industrial sector in China, that is manufacturing sector. Its contribution to Chinese economy is more than 40%. So China, long back between 1988 and 2020, it had emerged as a world's manufacturing hub, and India missed the bus. Now, only in 2015, we were talking about Make in India. By the time, game is over. And entire world is directly or indirectly, consciously or unconsciously, they are very much dependent on China because it has become a manufacturer's hub. And here is some interesting statistics. Between 1969 and 1989, the 20-year period, we all know Tata Group of companies, a highly respected group of companies even now, right? And rarely we find, I never found any news item relating to the controversy of Tata Group of companies, right? And during that period, 1969 and 1989, the 20-year period, Tata Group of companies applied for 120 licenses. They applied for 120 licenses for starting up of a new business, and they were not successful. Just I'm giving this example just to indicate the attitude of our country towards manufacturing, towards business, and that is the advantage of China. And the same is the case if you compare India with South Korea. I think there are some people, some senior people, they were well aware of certain brands which were very popular in 1990s. That is, we have certain brands like Videocon, BPL, Onida. These were very popular brands of television sets at that time, great demand, and they were Indian companies. But if you see in the marketplace, which are the popular brands of washing machines and television sets, it may be LG, it may be Samsung, it may be some other brand, but all these brands are owned by basically South Korea. And South Korea was devastated after their war in 1953. And but they successfully adopted Japanese model, and very soon they became very powerful, dominant economic power in the world. So so it is also, while we are discussing about something about Indian economy, instead of looking at the macro economic variables relating to India, that is not just enough. We need to compare ourselves with other nations. And there's nothing wrong in learning some lessons from other nations also. It may be Singapore, it may be China, it may be, of course, China and India are more comparable compared to China and South Korea, compared to India and South Korea, or India and Japan, right? These are some of the challenges, and India and China have almost the same size of population, but there exists a vast difference in terms of GDP per capita. And this slide also shows the China's per capita income and India's per capita income. You see the vast difference between the per capita of two nations. And paradoxically, India ranked third in billionaire population next to the US and China. So top 1% of Indians owns 22% of national income. That is a statistic. As per the World Inequality Report 2022, top 1% of Indians owns 22% of national income. That is why, jokingly, some of the economists, they lament like this: India is a rich country, but Indians are poor. But some Indians are very rich. Some Indians are very rich. Most of Indians are very poor. So the bottom of earns just 13% of national income. So, different forms of inequality we need to address in order to make India a Viksit Bharat by 2047. And these are some of the forms of inequality that exist in our society. That is in terms of gender, caste, sexual orientation, and religion. Yes, next, ma'am. I will try to complete in next 30 minutes, then there may be interaction. Yes. So these are some of other challenges, and women workforce in India account for 18% of national income, among the lowest in the world. Among the lowest. And the richest 21 Indian billionaires have more wealth than 70 crore Indians. The rich 21, just 21 number. The richest 21 Indian billionaires have more wealth than 70 crore Indians. Globally, over 60% of increase in crony capitalist wealth from the US, China, Russia, and India. If you take these 4 countries, US, China, Russia, and India, out of these 4 countries, 3 countries are in Asia. Out of these 4 countries, 2 countries have democratic system. America, we consider it as the oldest democracy, whereas India, we consider it as the largest democracy. And 2024 is the election year, not only for America and India, and according to some statistics, 50% of people, almost 50% of people in this world, they are going to elect new governments in 2024 across the globe, right? And so, but you know, America and India, because they have democracy, because their democracy is still people, world respected these countries as democratic countries, right? They have a responsibility to be a role model for other nations in terms of safeguarding the democratic fabric of the country, right? And out of 43 nations, India ranked at the 10th position on crony capitalism index. That is as per the Economics Report 2023. That means out of 43 countries, you know, India is one of the top countries in terms of crony capitalism. I need not explain much about how crony capitalism is dominating the world of business and the world of politics. So China's position is 21st and US position is 26th. They are relatively less crony capitalist countries. Right? Japan 36th position and Germany 37th position are among the least crony capitalist countries out of 43. Yes, ma'am, next. Then, you know, next 10 slides, it is about the, identifying the problem. That is one important thing. Identifying the problem, right? I mean, we are not supposed to keep some inconvenient facts under the carpet, right? And as researchers and as teachers, it is also our responsibility, especially when we are teaching our social sciences. I may be teaching commerce, you may be teaching psychology, or other person may be teaching political science, right? And we have a responsibility to highlight the pertinent issues relating to the economy, relating to the country, and making our students think, provoking our students to think about better India, right? That should be our objective. So next slide, next 10 slides, my focus is on, what is to be done, what we have to do in order to achieve Viksit Bharat by 2047. What are the issues we need to address? And that is my focus. We need to prioritize. So there is a need for substantial social sector investment. Because Human Development Index, it focuses mostly on social sector, not just the economic sector, right? So ensure that the benefits of economic growth are more evenly distributed. And I read many articles, when finance ministers, when prime ministers of different countries, presidents of different countries, when they speak about GDP growth rate and there are a lot of discussion happened among the economists, and what they found is GDP is growing, GDP growth is there, but it is a jobless growth. I published a few articles on this also, jobless. So growth in GDP, it is not really reflecting in decent employment. GDP is growing, but proportionately, jobs are not being created, livelihoods are not being created. And how to address that particular problem? So we need to ensure the benefits of economic growth are more evenly distributed. And government spending on social sector in India is low. Political commitment for inclusive policies to strengthen public health, education, and nutrition That is why today's happiness day, the objective of UN is to have more inclusive societies, to have more equitable and balanced approach to economic growth, right? And political commitment is very much required to strengthen public health, education, and nutrition. And India's status is very low on these aspects. Then is it possible for India to emerge as Viksit Bharat without addressing these pertinent issues, basic issues? So in sub-Sahara Africa, why I have given this particular example is normally we consider sub-Sahara Africa is very low in terms of GDP. But in that region also, 7% of GDP is spent on health and education, but it was a mere 4.7% in India. Skilling 40 crore people, and ours is 1.4 billion population, right? And 40 crore people who are in the productive age group, right? They are still suffering from a massive skill deficit, and that is a big challenge. Next, ma'am. Yes. Next slide. Developed India with equity by 2047. So development doesn't mean only economic development. Development should include social development, inclusiveness, well-being of the people. That is why I think with equity is more important. With equity is more important, right? Then policy prescriptions for structural transformation is required. And strengthen the MSME sector, micro, small, and medium enterprises sector. That is the backbone of Indian economy, right? And strengthen the MSME sector and other vulnerable sections. A vast majority of the people, they depend on MSME sector for their livelihood. Increase employment formality, infrastructure and financing, reconciling the dichotomy between inclusiveness and inflation management. And our inflation management is not up to the mark. And there are certain reports very recently, there are certain reports that there is a reduction of petrol price by 2 rupees. There is a reduction of 100 rupees per cylinder, right? And there are headline news about as if inflation is going down. There's a lot of news. But whatever may be the claims of the government, if a common man, is not feeling reduction of prices when he is in the marketplace, then what is the use of all these things, right? And I'm not critical about the initiatives of these things. But the thing is, why just before elections? Why just before elections? Why not other times? Right? So these are some of the questions common man is also thinking, right? We need to strengthen the functioning of policy-making institutions. For example, Parliament, Standing Committees, CAG, to achieve inclusive growth. And I wrote some articles about the functioning of Parliament, and it is possible to measure the productivity of an assembly, a state assembly. It is possible to measure. Yes, sir. It is possible to measure the functioning of a standing committee, the functioning of a parliament. It is possible to measure the performance of a CAG, Comptroller and Auditor General, right? And there are countries, where these democratic institutions are performing very well, right? And many times, development thinkers, they also ask certain questions that there is a lot of money power in elections. And people with a lot of money power, people with a lot of business interests, right? They are entering the assembly, they are entering the parliament. And according to their own confession, 40 to 50% of members, right? They have a criminal background, according to the confession of their own, the members themselves, right? And if we are not able to fix this particular problem, right, then, Viksit Bharat by 2047 may be very difficult to achieve, just based on size of economy or per capita income, right? This is one important area. Yes, ma'am, next one. then universal social security. India is very low in achieving universal social security. So I just mentioned about the strength of MSME sector, and 91% of workforce, that is maybe 48 crore of people, they are in informal employment. Globally, it is only 58%. Whereas in case of India, it is almost 91%. So only 9%, only 10% of people in India, they are in formal employment. The main problem in India is not unemployment. The main problem in India is nature of employment. And most of the workers in India, most of the employees in India, nowadays it is happening even in government sector, in public sector. It is happening in corporate sector also. I mean, they are not formal employees. They are not in employment because they don't have any access to social security. And Social Security Code 2020 is silent on this. And it is high time to formulate a comprehensive legislation covering the vast 90% of people who are still suffering without any access to social security. And economists estimated the cost of financing the social security for the poorest 20% of population amounting to just 0.69% of GDP. So just by financing of social security, there is some literature about that, and many economists worked on that. So just by spending 0.70% of GDP, it is possible to cover 20% of population, to bring them under some social security. It is possible. And India will become an aging nation, we should not remember. Today we are enjoying a demographic dividend, but in next 20 years, India would become an aged nation, and thereby losing the phase of demographic dividend. And most of the informal workers, right, who are working now, they become elderly people at that time. And what kind of protection India has for those people? That is the question. Yes, next. This is another issue. Poverty of data on India's poverty. Poverty of data on India's poverty. So critics say that first time in 50 years, last 50 years, India did not revise its official poverty estimates for more than a decade, since 2011 and 12. I think very recently some consumption survey came. Delayed consumption expenditure surveys and census 2021. First time it is happening in India. And we social scientists and teachers of social sciences, we have a responsibility to think about that. Never census got delayed this much, right? And we have not seriously started the work also. Now it is 2024. And new government would come only in the month of June, maybe. So then, where is the data? Where is the data about our own people? So there is no accurate picture of how many people are actually poor. Has poverty reduced in India? That is a big question. And many economists, including Nobel laureates, and many economics, including some who worked in the government as advisors, they have become clueless to understand, to estimate poverty, incidence of poverty in the country. Because just by using some statistical projections, they are trying to measure some poverty, and they are trying to say that poverty has been reduced. The 25 crore people that escaped from poverty, it is a claim of the government. And it is based on one research paper published by Niti Aayog members. Just a research paper based on statistical projections. And the criticism is they didn't include COVID. For projecting poverty, they didn't include COVID period. And we all know how COVID had impacted the lives of the people and their livelihoods, right? So long-term sustainable poverty reduction depends on health and education. India's continued dismal performance in health and education, and the governments need to need to conduct surveys and release the data as per calendar promptly, whether the government is comfortable or not with the results, right? So we need to have courage to face the reality. We need to have courage to understand the ground reality. Because unless we know about that, it is not possible. Now, from policy making perspective, how it is possible to develop a policy to address the poverty if we don't have data about poverty? That is the question. Yes, ma'am, next one. Why India so poor despite being the 5th largest economy? I think we had some discussion already. India was so I think we all know India is still the largest lower middle income country with 18% of world's population, and India's per capita income at the bottom, that is 147th, and that is 10 years back, and now it is 141st after 9 years. Not much difference, in fact, right? The issue is not about when India will become the 3rd largest economy. That is not the issue. But when the incomes of Indians will grow to reach higher middle income level, that is the issue. Where are the answers? So commitment of investments in 3 glaring areas of deficiencies is very much needed. That is health, public health, out-of-pocket expenses, we call it OOPE, out-of-pocket expenses. India is one of top countries where insurance coverage is too meager, and the government responsibility is not up to the mark, and 50 to 60% of expenses that Indians spend on their for medical expenses, right? 50 to 60% they are spending from their own pocket. That is one of the highest among the world, right? Among different countries in the world. So that is why, we need to have commitment in these 3 glaring areas of deficiencies, that is health, education, and a decent standard of living. That is about employment. Yes, next ma'am. Next one. Next slide. I think there may be 3 or 4 slides still. Next slide, please. Yeah. So enhance female work participation. Education, see, interestingly, education of Indian women has risen. Ability to use modern technology enhanced. Ability to utilize the modern infrastructure got enhanced. But female work participation rate in India fallen from 42% in 2004 to 32% in 2021. In between, it fell to even 16% before 2021. See, actually, declining performance. And so we need to ensure equal participation of women by skilling, upskilling, and reskilling them. And this is a neglected area. Then Indian women contribute only 18% of GDP. And India's GDP could potentially increase by 27%, equating to $770 billion in case India can increase female work participation to the same level as men. This is one gray area which that needs to be addressed. Yes, next one. Comprehensive action plan to check ecological destruction. Comprehensive action plan to check ecological destruction is so. Any presentation without mentioning of ecology, preserving the ecology is incomplete. So just I want to highlight one important fact. In terms of environment performance index, that is one index, and they measure the performance of different countries in the world, how those countries are doing in terms of preserving their ecology and environment. Out of 180 countries, the rank of India is perhaps the least out of 180 countries. But India, we consider India as a birthplace of 4 religions in the world. And India is a country where different elements of Mother Nature are worshipped. But in terms of behaving as a responsible citizens towards environment. Our performance is the lowest in the world. So this is one example, the Char Dham project, an example of unsustainable development. So many environmentalists and geologists, right? And despite their advice, government is going ahead of having this Char Dham project, and it is an example of unsustainable development model covering 900 kilometers in Indian Himalayan region. And the Parliamentary Standing Committee in March 2023 expressed anguish on over-exploitation of natural resources there, and trying to develop tourism at the cost of ecology is a big question mark. And similarly, there was an amendment last December in Parliament. They amended the Forest Conservation Act 1980. And according to that, as per that amendment, it is possible, to relax certain rules, and that would lead to about 2 lakh square kilometers of forest area open for commercial exploitation. Are our governments ready to listen to the advocacy of scientists and environmentalists like Sunita Narayan? That is the question. So Viksit Bharat, without bothering about environment, I don't think it is possible. Yes, next one. Access to quality of higher education. We all, important stakeholders in higher education system. And India, the world's second largest higher education system, right? And higher education system is highly inconsistent and lopsided. And only 12% of higher education institutions, right, they participate in NIRF rankings last year, only 12%. And 43% of universities and 61% of colleges in India, they are located in rural India, in rural areas. 43% of universities and 61% of colleges, they locate in rural India. And there is a negligible presence of higher education institutions from rural areas in the list of top 100 colleges under NIRF. I don't want to compare India with other nations. I'm not talking about international rankings. Let us compare our own institutions, domestically with the best institutions, right, within the country. And if you take Uttar Pradesh, it has the highest number of colleges, but not a single college figured in the list of top 100 under NIRF. Not a single college from UP. And UP is the home for the largest number of colleges. Just, I want to highlight the existence of inequalities between the institutions. So 80% of high quality colleges in 3 states, 80% of high quality colleges, they exist in 3 states, Tamil Nadu, Delhi and Kerala. So there is a prevalence of huge inequalities across the country to quality education. I just highlighted higher education. It doesn't mean all is well with the primary education. We all know ASER reports, right? And we have that annual status of education report. If we see the ASER reports, how we are faring in case of this primary and secondary education, we come to know, right? Yes, next one. So what is the way out? So India is expected to face a shortage of around 2.9, almost 3 crore skilled personnel by 2030. So on one side, we feel that there are no jobs in India, sufficient number of jobs. But on the other side, the employers and industry, they say, we have jobs, but we don't have enough number of candidates to take up, right? So to a point, right? So India's spending on R&D was only 0.7% of GDP, but the world average is 1.8%. India's spend was lower than the BRICS countries, because BRICS countries are comparable to India than other countries, but India spend is too less. And NEP's prescription, National Education Policy's prescription is to spend 6% of GDP on education, but actual spending not even half of it. Union government as well as the state governments together, right? So the skill deficit could cost the country around $1.97 trillion. Yes, next one. Next one. So, what is the way out? So the Mahatma Gandhi is still relevant, even in 2024. Mahatma Gandhi not as an individual, Mahatma Gandhi as economist, Mahatma Gandhi as social reformer, Mahatma Gandhi as politician, and Mahatma Gandhi as a philosopher is still relevant even in 2024, not only to India, to the entire world. So long way to go to achieve SDG 16, Sustainable Development Goal 16, promoting peaceful and inclusive societies and providing access to justice for all through building effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Gram Swaraj, he spoke about that, right? Village industries, he spoke about that. So Global Peace Index, that is one important index, Global Peace Index 2023, is a comprehensive measure focusing on not only low crime rates, but also the presence of robust education system and welfare systems, income equality, fair pay for workers, human rights, etc. So due to the absence of many such qualities, many such characteristics, India was ranked 126th out of 163 countries in terms of Global Peace Index 2023. So in 1925, 100 years back, Gandhiji wrote about the 7 social evils. We are aware of that. And he called poverty a moral collapse of society. So discussion on poverty is not on top of the agenda, unfortunately. Next one. So what to do? Next slide. What to do? So I want to close my small presentation with the quotation of Mahatma Gandhi, because we are the teachers, we are the academicians, and future generation is shaped in the classroom. That is what we believe in. And my father in 1960s, when he was a student of economics, he had studied that India was an underdeveloped country. In 1980s, as a student of economics, I had studied only wording changed. India is a developing nation, not underdeveloped, developing nation, right? At least I would wish that my grandson would not study the same lesson when he becomes a student of economics, maybe after 10 years, right? But we are going to make the future policy makers, right? Our students, they would become policy makers. And we have to make them think about the economy, and we have to make them to question the status quo, and we have to make them to emerge as change agents, and we have to make them to think about this particular question when they become decision makers and policy makers in different capacities. So this is the quotation of Mahatma Gandhi. Poverty is the worst form of violence. Recall the face of the poorest and weakest man you have seen, and ask yourself, if this step, if this decision, if this step you contemplate is going to be any use to him. If we remind, especially people at the helm, people in the decision-making positions, people in the leadership positions, people with power, and while making policy decisions, if they respect, if they abide by this particular philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, then it would be possible to make India as Viksit Bharat. That's all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightening session. I think that all of us definitely gain a knowledge. And I'm very sure that now we all understand how important happiness is. That's why we are today celebrating this International Happiness Day, because it is just associating with, increasing the economic
Yeah.
position of India. So now I request Professor Dr. Ashish Mishra, sir, HOD Management Department, to give vote of thanks. Sir, thank you.
Thank you, madam. Today,
Ashish Mishra ji, before
Good
giving
morning,
vote of
sir.
thanks, before
Yes, sir.
good morning, I am happy to see you on the screen. And before the vote of thanks, if some people they raised their hands, and maybe you just read out any observations are there in chat box. Okay, I will try to respond to some of the queries.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
I think Gopichand has raised one query regarding your presentation. I invite Honorable Gopichand, sir, to please put up your queries before the Honorable sir.
You will, I
Sir,
mean,
please unmute yourself, sir.
sir,
Gopichand,
unmute, sir. Gopinath, sir, please unmute.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor NVR Garu and the organizers. We are very much happy to get input from Dr. Sir. I just have few concerns or a few suggestions what he has covered. The first thing is, Doctor told that demographic dividend is not being exploited. Definitely, yes. We have about 70% of underemployable. That means they are not having skills which are needed for industries. These are all the things everybody say industry that we do not have the needs. But the problem is, why not we in the industry and institution in every rural area or urban area adopt, they liaise each of themselves and then put the syllabus jointly and have a sabbatical so that they can meet their own needs. We need not depend on the government. Only institutions are not for commercial purposes. They should, the industry should feel that my industry will grow only if the much required skills are required. So institution accordingly, they should mold the syllabus and make the students who are coming from the institutions which are for employable skills. That's my suggestion, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time also. We have been here throughout. Though he's, as mentioned earlier, he's a retired senior scientist from ISRO. And very recently he came to Mizoram and he participated in one international seminar in our university. And he was prepared to come by spending his own money. You know, I just want to highlight this particular example. Even after crossing 70 years of age, you know, at this age also, he is very much interested to participate in this kind of webinars and in visiting educational institutions, right? You are a great source of motivation, sir, for people like me.
We are always present, sir. Anywhere, we'll motivate the students by organizing our, I will impart my knowledge to them. Disseminate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any other responses?
Good morning, sir. Can I just ask a few questions?
Yeah.
Sir, hi. My name is Sai Charan Kotaru, and I'm a research scholar. I have just a couple of 3 questions with you.
Which place, sir? You are from which place?
I'm from Guntur, sir, in Andhra Pradesh.
Okay. Yeah, you are doing research. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a research scholar here in Nagarjuna University. I have 3 questions, sir, regarding this thing, your today's discussion. The first question I wanted to ask you about was, sir, the comparison between India and China, which you compared. Sir, you said that China and India were equal at once at 1 year, and after a year growth, we contemporary. I mean, we slowly got down, and China was above us. So there, I just want to ask you one thing, sir. Is it because of communalism and capitalism difference, or is it like? I just wanted to know whether you are comparing capitalism with communism there over there.
Okay, that is one question. What are other 2 questions?
Sir, my second question was about the, sir, you were talking about the finishing of poverty, I mean, lowering of poverty in the last 25 years. Rather, I would feel, sir, we have been in an intense situation over these last 25 years, because firstly, we have gone through the global financial crisis. Then the COVID came. Now we are in a highly inflated, I mean, currently we are undergoing a very high inflation, which is definitely going to burst someday or the other, maybe in the next by 2030 or so. So are we actually coming out of poverty is my second question. And my third question is, sir, about the Minimum Wages Act in private and public sector. If you compare a public servant with a private employee, a private employee does the same job at a very minimum wage rate, which should not be the difference between both as a private and a public sector, any company or any sector. If you see, the same is being done. A private firm is doing the same job at a much lower level of rate, which is causing a more poverty in India. I mean, I suggest that there should be a minimum wage act in private sector also.
Yeah. So your good name, please, once again.
Sai Charan Kotar.
Sai Charan, thanks for your response. And I mean, about first question, see, democracy we consider as the most acceptable form of governance, and that people agree. But how the democracy is being working, that is another issue. So on paper, everyone appreciates a form of democracy, people participation, and people should elect their leaders. That's fine. And I think there is no better form of governance than democracy. Everyone agrees with that. But the issue is how we are functioning as a democratic country, and the performance of the democratic institutions and the fabric of democracy, whether we are really respecting it at different levels, top level, middle level, village level, right? And I mean, we have different laws. Anti-defection law is there, Anti-Corruption Act is there, and how to prevent criminalization from politics, how to make it far away from politics. That is, many policies are there, some legislations are there, but somewhere still a long way to go as India. And many the world respects India and countries like the US because of course US is very boldest democracy, but India is the largest democracy. And compared to even now, not only in 1947, even now, I mean, there is no comparison between India and America in terms of literacy, education level, in terms of technology. There is no comparison. But still, many people feel still we are a very successful country. India is a very successful country, and compared to many of our neighboring nations like Pakistan, even China, right? So, despite having so many demerits, still India could gain respect as a democratic country. But all is not well with Indian democracy. That we need to focus. Where we are not, where we are underperforming, we means the leaders at different levels, including governments and policymakers, including the higher education institutions and stakeholders like you and me, right? And so that is one thing. And the second question is about what?
My second question is about that. Are we actually coming out of poverty? Like, because we are facing challenges like COVID, global financial crisis, and all.
True. It is true. And the thing is, why to make imaginary? Why to imagine that there is no poverty or poverty is reducing? Better we have statistics. What is the problem in having statistics? Why don't we? Last 10 years, one criticism is last 10 years there is no sincere attempt on the part of our country to measure, to understand how much poverty we have. And we are aware of Tendulkar committee and certain committees are there. And so, meaning of poverty, we are too liberal. I mean, just I think if a person is able to spend 180 rupees a day, if he is able to spend 180 rupees per day to meet his needs, then we consider him as non-poor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that is so from that angle, because we are not very stringent and we are not very conservative in defining who is a poor person. We are very liberal, and accordingly we are saying that non-poor percentage is increasing and poor percentage is decreasing. But I mean, whether people are having access to quality education, healthcare, and proper living standards, that is the question. That is why HNI, this Human Development Index addresses that issue. Right?
Okay.
And conveniently, and I think our leaders, they don't speak much about that. But we have to recognize such type of issues as issues. Then solutions would happen. That is my concern. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And thank you, Dr. Gopinath ji, scientist from Misro, and Sri Sai Charan Kutharu ji, for raising a very relevant questions based on the presentation of Honorable Sir. Today, I am very much thankful to Honorable Dr. NVR Jyoti Kumar, sir. He is from Mizoram University. And the topic, Pathway to Viksit Bharat 2047, Challenges and Opportunities for Indian Economy. Definitely, Honorable Jyoti Kumar, sir, has covered each and every aspect of the Indian economy, that how the Indian economy is going to become a Viksit Bharat category. Especially, I would like to mention a few points under his presentation. He covered the ground realities of the Indian economy, what at present, and he covered the 17 sustainable development goals, which cover the major areas and dimensions of Indian economy. It was really very fruitful session for all the students from management and commerce stream, sir. And the point which you have been added, that female work participation, that is really a one point, that the female work participation is increasing in Indian economy, and it will very much helpful to become India as a Viksit Bharat in coming few years. Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable inputs, and it was very beneficial for all the students as well as faculty of the Mangalayatan University, Jabalpur. I am very much thankful to the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Mangalayatan University, Professor K.R.S. Sabbasiv Rao ji. I am also very much thankful to the Pro Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Dr. Avinita Kaur Saluja ji. I am thankful to the Registrar of the University, the Organizing Secretary, Dr. Swati Saxena Madam, the Nita Dipavare Madam, and the faculty members of Management and Commerce departments, and all the students and faculty members of Mangalayatan University who joined this webinar. Once again, I am very much thankful to Honorable Sir, Dr. NVR Jyoti Kumar, sir, for giving a very useful information in his presentation. Thank you, sir. Over to Swati Saxena, madam. Namaskar, sir.
Thank you. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So thanks for your patience, and thanks, Professor Ashish and Madam Swati, for your support. And I also appreciate the patience of the participants, for bearing with me. And if you want to continue in any professional relationship, we are most welcome. And
Yes, sir. We will in touch with you, sir.
Yeah,
Definitely in coming times, definitely we will organize some programs in as well as in online mode. Now we conducted today, but we hope that definitely we would like to invite you in future if we conduct some academic programs in our university. So definitely, I hope that we will get your academic guidance and presence in Jabalpur in Mangalayatan University. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much to all the participants who have joined over here.
Thank you, Ashish, sir, and I wish more and more such seminars happen. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, sir.
I will leave now. Thank you.